In Chapter 19 of Revelation with 0 strength and magic against enemies with 100 crit, we are up against the apex predator of Excelblem style challenge runs, a hard time limit of 20 turns, but the call of missable items and weapon drops is too alluring to resist. Because of the time limit, I spend quite a few resets optimizing my first few turns, and I end up with a pretty good method that lets me clear both generals and sorcerers that protect the dragon veins I left in one turn. This dragon vein is the central mechanic of this map, and it creates replicates of your units on the isolated bottom island. These replicates are completely cut off from the top, and notably, they will share stats with their main bodies, including HP and any buffs or debuffs that have been applied. It allows for some really interesting and complicated moves that let me support the replicates or the main bodies with heals and buffs from either side. This is all well and good, but there is one big negative in that an Azura replicate cannot use a sing action, making my bottom side army much weaker than it could be. This is a problem because the bottom side is where all the difficulty and loot is concentrated. The closest enemies on the bottom side are two sorcerers who had decided to face with Felicia, but even though she has Tonebreaker, they were able to crit and kill her immediately. Apparently, these enemies had around 30 hit because she had the Levin sword equipped, which has a minus 20 avoid penalty. So to compensate, I equipped Felicia with a more optimal weapon for the situation, a daikon radish, which is a common joke item obtainable in the My Castle. It only has 1 might, but has plus 10 avoid, which is shockingly relevant right now. This avoid boost lets Felicia dodge sorcerers and even snipers with complete reliability, allowing me to safely survive enemy phase so I can take them out in player phase. Unfortunately, pushing through the starting area ends up being surprisingly difficult, and I get overwhelmed by the reinforcements. I then make the tough decision of dropping Azura for this map because she is just deadweight on the bottom side. Lacking a dancer for the top side isn't great, but the enemy forces on the top side of the map are much easier to handle than the bottom. And this time, I also make use of an extremely obscure mechanic, which is that replicated units will copy the original unit's internal shield gauge state, but only at the exact moment that they are respawned. Afterwards, the replicates will have separate shield gauge meters, but this allows me to enter the bottom side of the map with my shield gauge already charged, which smooths out the start of the chapter considerably. I push both sides of the map, and on the top side, I can make easier use of baiting strategies because of the lack of reinforcements, and on the bottom, I use a choke point to split up enemies so I can deal with smaller groups at a time. In lieu of a dancer, I push for damage by abusing shelter to refresh Felicia's actions. By sheltering an unpaired Felicia and then transfer swapping with another unit, I can get multiple actions for Felicia at the cost of the other unit's turns, which is well worth it because Felicia's turns are much more valuable. The top side proves to be a little more difficult than expected, as I had to spend several turns retreating out of enemy range to not die, and I overextend on the bottom a little because of overlapping enemy reinforcement ranges. I have to make full use of replicate mechanics by healing Camilla's main body and swapping weapons there to remove the weapon triangle disadvantage so that her copy can just barely survive a 30 damage Dark Knight crit. I managed to clear the top side with 1 or 2 turns to spare, but on the bottom side I'm not able to reach the boss. It was just too difficult dealing with all the reinforcements. I did manage to get most of the treasure, but I did miss out on 10,000 gold for one of the generals, a beast killer from the Great Knight, and a boat Naginata from the boss. But all in all, I think it was a pretty good showing for the restrictions that my army has.